Hello again, doing something slightly different this time, and having a look at a game called Argatoria, and more specifically the Dirandis starter set, with some additional heroes. I got these as a bundle, and they came with the rulebook. But to give an overview, Argatoria is a 10mm kind of high fantasy, barbarian style, retro rank and flank game. A lot like Warmaster used to be back in day. It's created by Spellcrow, and I bought all of this plus the rulebook as a bundle, which cost me about £60, which for an entire army is pretty reasonable. And if you bought it as part of the bundle, then you got the heroes thrown in for free. Everything came individually bagged, and you get a good variety of troops in this box. You get half-giants, Sasquatches, barbarians, Amazonians, and a command set as well. They are made of resin, come with between 4 and 8 variety of bows, and they come with bases as well, most of which are 20mm. Some of the monster types, like the Sasquatches here, come with slightly larger bases, which I think are 25mm. Taking a look at the minis themselves, these are all hand sculpted and then cast, so they maintain that kind of retro 90s, early 2000s aesthetic. They also seem well designed, as despite being resin, I had no breakages in the pack. Then having a look at the heroes, you get 4 guys, 2 wizards, 2 champion types, and you also get 4 rocks. So I guess there's not too much empty space on the bases when you use them. Laying it all out, you get a reasonable amount, and having a close look at the figures, we have the heroes, then we have the 2 command sprues, so you get 2 musicians, 2 bannermen, 2 champions, and then 2 regular guys as well. Get the half-giants and the Sasquatches. For the half-giants, I received 2 of the same sprue, but there is an alternative 4 poses you can get as well. Then we have the barbarian warriors, and your Amazonian warriors as well, and those 2 kind of form your core units in your army. Sometimes with resin models you get release agent on them, so to get rid of that I took some dishwashing soap, some warm water, and an old paintbrush, and just started scrubbing them, making sure I get rid of all that release agent. Then doing the same thing with plain water to remove any of the soap residue. You can normally tell if you've got rid of the release agent because the minis won't be shiny anymore. Well, once they've dried off anyway. Also to note, the resin isn't particularly brittle, so I was able to go in with a pair of regular clippers and trim them from the bases. Then got rid of the excess using the sharp knife. But if you're having trouble with the resin, you can heat it up slightly using warm water, and that'll make it more flexible. So you can also use that to repose them if you have any wonkiness. Taking the bases and 2 dabs of superglue, I then attach them on the base, making sure none of them particularly overhang the edge. With a few of them assembled, I went onto the basing, using 2 types of Vallejo texture paste, starting off with a ground texture paste, which is slightly grittier and bigger, and using that to fill the slot gap in the middle of the base on some of them, as well as bridge a gap between the edge of the stand and the base itself. Once that had dried, it normally pulls back a bit from the edges, so going in with the earth texture paste and filling any of the gaps, and any of the weird edges as well. The earth texture paste being a little bit finer and less gritty, so it also gives a nice transition of different textures on the base. They then got a coating of black gesso as a primer, making sure it was very thinned down so I didn't lose any of the detail, which was then followed up with a dry brush of dark brown, making sure to leave black in the recesses between the arms and the muscles. Going for a pretty retro paint job on these, so using the old-fashioned techniques. Taking a dark tan flesh tone, I went in and hit all the muscles, again leaving a recess where the black paint was visible between them, so they'd be more defined, and again have that retro flavour. Then adding some top highlights, using a pale flesh tone, just picking out the very defining details of the muscles, and only hitting the top 50% of them. Nice thing about painting 10mm is it is genuinely so much easier, because the eye fills in so much of the extra detail for you. Using metallic paints on the weaponry, and a grey colour to fill in the fur. Then a mid-brown to get any of the additional details, such as the boots, the belts, and the braces, as well as choosing a variety of browns to fill out the facial hair. Using a light tan brown and a larger brush, I went in and gave a dry brush over the earth texture paste to pull out some of the detail and lighten the mini up some. Going back to a finer brush and taking some blue paint, I put some stripes over the upper bodies and the arms of the figures. Sometimes doing one arm, sometimes doing both, and sometimes doing a face stripe as well. Then taking a lighter blue and inlining between the darker blue sections, so it'd make the war paint pop. This is probably the fiddliest step to do with them, but it is worth it to get a bit of extra colour and stop them looking overall a bit too brown. It's also the main way the human factions in Argatoria are differentiated, because they share the same core units, with either blue, red or green war paint to differentiate them. The final touch for painting, which you have to do for the retro style, is to take a very light, almost vile green paint and do your rims. Then taking some absolutely tiny 2mm tufts, I put one or two on, as well as using a tiny dab of Mod Podge and some clump foliage, which I torn down to a tiny size, so I'd have some small shrubs and bushes around the base, which again adds a bit of colour and breaks up the brownness of the earth texture paste. So that is a very quick introduction to Argatoria, not touching on the fluff or anything, or the rules because I've not had a chance to read them fully. Spellcrow have done some great videos introducing the rules and doing a few games, so I'd recommend checking those out if you're interested in how the game plays. But yeah, I just love the retro styling of them, and it's a nice change from dystopian stuff or sci-fi post-apocalyptic. And one thing to note is I ordered from the website, and I don't know if they do this all the time, but they sent me a bag of random freebies. So I've got random individual guys from other regiments, so you get some of the other factions like the Lizard Men and the Beast Men from Shale Morgue. And yeah, they're all really nice, and I'm going to have a fun time painting those up before I go back to doing more post-apocalyptic terrain next week. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to catch you next time.